On this episode of Locked On Canadiens, Josh Anderson is playing about as well as he looks.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome once again to Locked On Canadiens. This is episode 1203 of the show. Thanks so much for tuning in and for making us your first listen of the day, and for subscribing here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Doing that supports the show and ensures you don't miss an episode. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as Maybe It's Ian, and I am joined as always by Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick. Laura, how are we feeling today? I know the weather up in Montreal is pretty crummy. It's on the east coast of the States. It's also pretty crummy. So we are one and the same. How are you doing today?
I'm excited to talk about Josh Anderson, and I'm excited that you brought up his handsomeness because it's usually my job.
We're equal opportunity here. We've kind of alluded to him getting his flowers over the last few episodes that we've done. So we kind of want to do a deeper dive on the things he's doing well and, where his future with the Canadiens lies. Also wanted to take a peek at what's happening in Buffalo right now. It's not good. So they made a point in there about Buffalo not being a destination franchise, and I kind of want to put that into the Canadiens' perspective. We'll do that in our second segment, and we'll wrap up with a Penguins preview. Montreal takes on the Pittsburgh Penguins as you are listening to this today, Thursday, and we'll break that down. Montreal's trying to avoid a sweep against Pittsburgh, so tune in for that to get the skinny on that game. All right, let's start with Josh Anderson. We've talked about him the last few games now, last few days on this show. The Josh Anderson we are seeing seems entirely rebuilt from scratch, and somehow they recreated almost the same version of Josh Anderson, who's playing very strong north-south hockey. What's your overall feeling watching him return to that sort of pace of play that we were used to seeing him play?
I think it's actually a little bit different because we're used to him being so one-dimensional, and that was the knock on him, was when he couldn't do that one thing right. He was just, he was all over the place. He was useless. He was actively sometimes harming the team and causing chances against. And I think here what's happening is that the first thing is that he simplified his game a little bit. And he's found a way to incorporate that one thing that he's good at into situations the Habs need him to do it in. So I feel like his awareness seems to be a lot better. And like something about his demeanor, he is not sinking into himself. He does not look like he's spiraling on the ice. Like, you saw how miserable he was all last season. And to be fair, we did criticize him. He wasn't playing well, but he was a favorite punching bag of this market. And it looked like, people just kept talking about him, like, get this guy off this team, get this guy off this team. His contract is too expensive. So what you have to do with Josh Anderson, I feel, is you have to eliminate the contract from the conversation, because it is what it is. You cannot change that. It does make him unattractive on the trade market, but you just take that out and you don't measure his current performance on his current team relative to his dollar amount. You feel a whole lot better about Josh Anderson from that moment. That's possibly what he's doing as well, is he's not feeling the weight of that anymore, right? I don't know what he did. He got married over the summer. I don't know if he has like a sports psychologist. I don't know if he had like a conversation with the bosses. I have no idea what happened. Maybe Marty is just reaching him. But he seems to have figured out the things that he's effective at, not trying, or he stopped trying to do things everyone knows he can't do. There's a lot less failure in the little moments on the ice. So we're getting less frustrated. He's getting less frustrated. Everybody's getting less frustrated. And he's thriving.
Yeah, he's this year's Yoel Armia, right?
Yeah.
We watched Yoel Armia have a stinky, very bad, no good season. And he, towards the end of the following season, really turned it around.
Yeah.
Josh Anderson is on that arc right now. It's funny you mentioned, he stopped doing things he's not able to do well. And I agree with you, but they're using him as a penalty killer, something he's never done. And it turns out he's pretty good at it.
Yeah.
He's on the second unit, right? He's not Yoel Armia or Jake Evans, but the fact that they took a player who really had no drive defensively more than any other forward. I'm not saying he was bad defensively, but he wasn't, pushing for a Selke or anything like that. And they turned him into a pretty reliable penalty killer on one of the best penalty kill units in the league.
Yeah,
Like
it could
that's
be
impressive.
Yeah. And it could be that that's one of the things his instincts are suited to, right? Because we saw last year everything he was doing, I feel like his instincts were just lying to him. And so in this case, it just feels like there's something about maybe like how reflexive he is, like how reactive he is. There's got to be something that just clicked. And whoever decided to do that, whether they were out of options or they thought it was a bright idea, like honestly, amazing. I
Yeah.
and it makes him feel useful as well. And it just compounds kind of the confidence slash playing better slash confidence, like that whole thing. It feels like he's found who he's supposed to be. I hope it continues. And I hope like we just continue to talk about him in the absence of his contract. Like that's like just put Josh Anderson in a vacuum and like the contract, the desire to trade him. Is he going to be part of the future, the core, blah, blah. Forget that. Just look at how handsome he is and how well he's played.
And I think the contract will matter less and less as the cap expands, right? The cap is going up. His percentage of the cap is going to go down. He's making, what is it, $6 million? 5.5, it's not even 6, 5.5 million this year, the next year, and the year after that. By the end of this contract, the cap will be way bigger than it is now. They will have his contract will seem far less minuscule. And we've talked about how, Jake Evans, I think people are going to get sticker shock by the deal that Jake Evans type players sign going into this next salary cap, because I think by the end of this deal, Josh Anderson will be paid like a high end third line player.
Yeah,
I think that's not out of the realm of possibility. Now, right now, it's too much, right? It's the same kind of conversation we're having with Brendan Gallagher, right? Who I believe
right now it's
is
too
making,
much.
he's 6.5.
Yeah.
So, but if they're your third line and they can remain at that level of play for the next few years, it's a third line you don't have to worry about, right?
Exactly.
You're going to plug in another center at some point in the near future. But Gallagher has a habit of turning whatever line he's on into like one of the best lines on the team. Remember the was it the Deno and Tatar line with him? Like that was one of the best lines the Canadiens had forever. Like that was
not
an
only
incredible
that,
line.
like they were constantly talked about as one of the best lines in the league.
Yeah, it was crazy. So like Josh Anderson being a part of that it's got to be great for his confidence. The one thing I really want to avoid doing here is pulling a pump and dump on Josh Anderson, like mentally, where we all go, well, his value's up, so you got to trade him now.
Yeah.
That's, to me, would send almost the wrong message to Josh Anderson that, like, if he wants to be here, he should be here.
Yeah.
Trading him away, and he does have some no trade protection. It probably includes all other Canadian teams and like Buffalo, who is not a destination city, and we'll get into them in our second segment. But like, if he wants to be here, he should be here. Now, if Josh Anderson wants a chance in the next 3 years to play for a Stanley Cup and he keeps this level of play, some team is going to trade for him. They're going to want him. And he's good. If it's a good fit and they're not on his trade protection list, he could go there. Like I could see him playing a lower 6 role on like a really good team and just being a guy they don't have to worry about. Which is crazy because that's a year ago, not what we were talking about. Right? We were talking about a different player.
So different.
Yeah.
It was so different. It was miserable. Like you could see clouds when you saw him play on the ice. He was just like surrounded by like clouds. And like there's so many times I want to make reference to this, like the series that I don't watch or read or anything anymore. He just looks like he's being followed around by shadows that like are threatening to eat him.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we don't really know who's, other than Josh Anderson and the work that he's put in, we're not really sure who's responsible for his turnaround. But I feel like the one thing he's been doing particularly well is just using his frame to protect the puck. You see him a lot with one hand on his stick, holding the puck, and his other hand outstretched, just kind of holding guys off. That's not something he was doing a ton of in the past. And you really notice it, especially on the rush when he's trying to drive to the net. He's very, very good at it. So to me, I have no evidence to back this up, but that screams Adam Nicholas, that he's teaching him how to use the tools that he has and the frame that he has to be able to use the rest of his talents on the ice, right? Because if he can't, he's got a really good shot, but if he can never get into areas to use it, he'll never be able to. So we had to teach him how to get to that area of the ice again.
I think that's a fantastic argument for the Montreal Canadiens to use their deep pockets and spend on more skills guys or women.
Adam Nicholas, whatever they're paying him is not enough. I will say that about Adam.
He needs a team. He needs a team. He needs let's build a business case for him to get a team.
We will do that for him over the next few years, I'm sure. All right. We will leave Josh Anderson and Adam Nicholas in segment 1. When we come back, we're going to break down what happened in the Buffalo Sabres news conference, which went very, very poorly for Buffalo. And we'll talk about how it directly relates to the Montreal Canadiens. And we'll get into that in just a minute. This episode is brought to you by Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find candidates fast. Ditch the busy work, use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree. Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. And that's one of the things I like the most about Indeed, the confidence that you will not only fill the position quickly, but that the candidates you are matched with will be high quality matches. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Now, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we are back. And we have to talk about one of the things in hockey that I find to be the worst idea is to let upper management talk. Kevin Adams was thrown to the wolves this week in a press conference, sort of just giving the state of the union for Buffalo, which they are better than they were last year, but still a very big disappointment. And one of the things that came up was Kevin Adams essentially said, not even essentially, the line that is reverberating throughout hockey right now is, we have taxes and there are no palm trees in New York, or no palm trees in Buffalo. I would imagine there's not much of New York that has palm trees, but let's make that distinction clear. How bad is that? That seems bad, right? Like I reacted to that very upset for Buffalo fans. It's a city I really love and a fan base that, regardless of who you root for, you should understand that the Buffalo Sabres fans deserve more than what they've gotten. It's unfair what's happening there. So how did you feel hearing all of this from Kevin Adams this week?
I just thought it was a very bad idea. I thought it was disrespectful to the fans, disrespectful to the city. And I know we always we joke around oh, the Habs might have lost, but you have to live in Buffalo, that kind of stuff. But that's a very passionate fan base that has not been treated well by ownership, right? And the front office, right? The fact that the on-ice product is terrible is institutional, organizational, whatever you want to call it, right? It has nothing to do with the fans. And the fans are so passionate. You know that because you watch them before a football game. They will jump through tables. Literally, that is what they do.
They dig out the stadium. When the stadium gets full of snow, they show up with shovels and they dig the place out.
Right. These people love sport and they love hockey, and they loved hockey like that before the team was this bad for this long, right? So I don't think that it's fair to say, and I know we're going to get into this with Montreal, but I think that if you are a team that has a chance to win, you are a destination franchise. Because I don't care what you say about the fact that there are no taxes in Florida. There are palm trees. There are no taxes. People were not flocking to Tampa Bay when it sucked. People were
Absolutely.
not dying to sign with the Florida Panthers when it sucked. I'm sorry. It's the
Got it.
truth. You know, you make some bold moves. You either get a coach everybody wants to play with. You do like I almost called him Brady, a Matthew Tkachuk trade. Now all of a sudden everybody wants to be a freaking Florida Panther. Why? Because they're winning. They have a chance to win. You could be the greatest city in the world. You are, and people will be miserable there if they're a terrible team, right? And so like people make fun of things like that. Oh, Columbus is a small market. Like Buffalo's not a fun place to live. There's too much snow. It's boring. If there was a chance at winning a Stanley Cup, they would all go there.
Yeah, your point on Florida and Tampa is so well met. Like, I think that that's something we do not talk about enough. Like,
sorry for yelling.
No, you're good. The like I think of the Florida Panthers when I first started watching. Like, their best player was like Ole Jokinen and Jay Bouwmeester. Jay Bouwmeester was fantastic. They're both really great players, but they were never like these
They
teams.
didn't have
these
any
players,
other. Yeah.
No, they weren't signing these mega deals to come and play there. You know, so like that the taxes thing is half the equation, I think, or maybe even less than that. But
It is, and I'll tell you why in a second. Go on.
the other half is making your city, your team, a place that players want to be a part of. And that's something that Buffalo has done a terrible job of doing. And it's something that, you know, the very pro-tank crowd, I think took a little too lightly through the bad eras of this team, where, you know, we would talk about, you know, this is bad for team culture to be this bad for this long, you know, not the length that the Canadiens did it, but like, you know, the Buffalo Sabres, the old New Jersey Devils, like between the year they went to the Cup final to last year, essentially, like they were terrible. What does Montreal have to do to become that destination franchise again? They're not right now. They're not signing free agents. We know that free agents spurned them to go elsewhere this year, understandably. But like, what does Montreal have to do to get back into that conversation?
So from my perspective, they need to have a plan that they can sell. They need free agents to buy what they're selling, right? So whether it's look at this core, don't you want to be part of it? Or look at this coach, or look at this potential, right? They're not there right now. But Montreal is a city, like one of the things is like, it is true that Quebec pays one of the highest tax rates in the league. Not just in Canada, but also in the league. So like you do have to contend with that. Like there's definitely that aspect. But here's the thing. You get the right lawyer, the right tax lawyer, you get the right financial advisors. There's this thing called an RCA trust. Like learn about it, right? Like if you're an NHL player and you're signing in Montreal and you're like, or not signing in Montreal because it's like, do your research, surround yourself by the best guys. At this point, like if I'm talking, the Canadiens are about to contend, they're trying to attract really big free agents. Those guys probably have a team around them. There's ways you can not completely get around the tax, but there's ways you can mitigate the effects of the taxes on your life overall, especially in your future, right? So you figure that kind of stuff out. You get people, but you're more than willing, and it's true that in some cases that Montreal has to offer a little more. And I feel like in those cases, it's generally guys less like lower in the salary cap, just because of the amount of money that they are left with afterwards. Whereas like, you know, players making $8-9 million, it affects them far less. I just feel that if the team is winning, like nobody's going to care about the taxes. Nobody's going to care about the cold. And Montreal is a city that has a reputation for being a really good time. So good time, good schools, relatively cheap housing, right? So you could find an amazing McMansion, like all NHL wives love, for very cheap, right? Like you can live a good life in Montreal. So it's really the destination, like whether or not people want to sign here has nothing to do with French or taxes. Everyone's like, oh, but what about the French? There's English schools here. There's English everything here. Right? Yep. You're not signing in the middle of like 5 hours from anywhere, rural town where nobody speaks English. Like you're literally signing in Montreal. So
yeah,
it just,
and
anyways.
you want to. What I think you want to do is attract the players who like that spot, who like the idea of playing for a prestige franchise, which is what Montreal is. Like they're obviously they've taken a step back to take 2 steps forward, but like Patty Laine talked about how he was happy to come back to a market where hockey really was the main thing. You know, Columbus, I've heard great things about what it's like to live there. Like players seem to really enjoy it. But it's not the same as Montreal. Montreal is one of one in that category. So if you can corner that market, find that kind of player who doesn't shy away from that spotlight, which I know is challenging because a lot of these guys have become very like attention averse, like they don't want the spotlight on them. You find those guys and you do well. That's why the Slavkovsky pick has worked out. That's why the Ivan Demidov, other than him being a fantastic talent, he wants that pressure.
Right.
These are guys that thrive in those moments. So to me, like that's that. In order to do that, you have to start winning hockey games and show that there is something on the horizon here that they're building that other people want to be a part of. You're a right-hand shot defenseman. You want to come play with Lane Hudson? You know, you want to come, if you're a left-hand shot defenseman, you want to come play with David Reinbacher. Like that's the thing you have to try to start selling, right?
Yeah. I do want to point out real quick, Amazon Prime Hockey, they do these things. And so they were talking to all these players about what's the loudest rink in the league. Every single one of them, including the Toronto Maple Leafs, they all said Montreal, right?
Yeah.
That counts for something. And so again, I went on a rant. I love this city so much. And I don't believe that taxes are a thing that deters people. The cold is not a thing that deters people. And if Buffalo had a shot at a Stanley Cup, everybody would be trying to sign there.
Yeah. No question. Laura, you're on the ground there. We need you to start planting palm trees as soon as you possibly can. All right.
So we can become a destination franchise.
Exactly. Fool them all with palm trees. All right. We're going to step aside for a second. We will be back. And when we are back, we're going to talk about the game coming up against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And we'll get into that in just a moment. Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. If you love sports, you're going to love PrizePicks, the best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money. Whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in on the action. Here's what you need to get started today. You can win up to 200 times your money on PrizePicks. Get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. No need to win. The $50 is guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers fun weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where select player projections are discounted up to 25%. For example, maybe this week you can look at Patty Laine to have more than 4 shots on goal, or Nick Suzuki to have more than 1 assist. It's so simple to make my picks and have fun with friends while potentially cashing out fast. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly. PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, Laura, we are back. Before we jump into our final segment, I do want to remind folks of our contest that we have going on. I'm going to quickly bend over to pick this up. We are giving away a signed Carey Price photo. It's got an authenticity thing on the back, so you know it's real. We're giving this away to folks who send in their Spotify Wraps, any kind of podcast year-end thing that anybody's doing that shows that we're one of your top listened episodes or top listened shows. Send it in. That will enter you to the contest. We've gotten a lot of entries. Like I'm touched by that. I know I've only been here for a few months, but it's nice to know you're being listened to, right? So send those in.
And we have some people that like I've seen those names from year one, and that makes me want to cry. Like it's so great. We love you guys.
Yeah. The everydayers, you guys are the real ones. If you don't have a spot like a Spotify Wrapped or something like that through your podcasting app.
Mm-hmm.
Just leave a review on the podcasting platform of your choice. If you can send that to us as well, that would be great. We'd love to take a look at those. That will enter you just the same. So you have until Christmas. We'll stop the drawing then, and we'll draw the winner, and the winner will get this nice Carey Price photo. Hopefully, by then we are looking at a postal situation in Canada that is conducive to that sort of delivery. But until then, we will.
I mean, you might win if you're in Australia, right? So.
Yeah, if anyone is down the road from me, I'll just drive it to your house. Like that's probably faster than any of that. So good luck. Thanks for sending those in. It really touches us. It's nice to see that, you know, the show resonates with so many of you, and you guys are, you know, it's the feedback we get from you guys is why we keep doing this. So thank you. All right. Montreal playing Pittsburgh on Thursday. Pittsburgh has definitely picked their game up a little bit since we last saw them. However, it didn't really matter the first 2 times Montreal and Pittsburgh played. Pittsburgh won both of those games, one of them handedly. The other was rather close in a low event game in Pittsburgh. But they wrap up their season series. It's very weird that we're wrapping up a season series in December against a non-divisional opponent. Like, it's very bizarre the way that the schedule is built. I think that's a bingo card. That's a free space, is me complaining about how the schedule is built. So what are you looking at in this game against Pittsburgh?
Honestly, I just don't want them to be embarrassed again. And I want them to contain Pittsburgh because they are on a hot streak, right? And the first thing that I would like them to do is to show up and actually play an entire 20 minutes, because we did not see that last game. And then once they're done doing that, go away for 17 minutes and then come back and play another full 20 minutes and then repeat. That's what I would really like. Yes, extremely bold. Have they talked about who they're starting? Real quick, Jake Evans apparently is okay. Looks like he's in playing shape the day that we're recording this. There are a couple of therapy days which we're not going to worry about until they become relevant. Josh Anderson, Josh Anderson's going to be fine. He's going to be the reason this game is not lost, I think.
Wow. It would be nice to see him get on the board again, right?
Yeah.
I was looking through, as I often do, just randomly search through Hockey Reference. We're only a few seasons removed from a 21 goal season from Josh Anderson, a 20 plus goal season from him. It's wild that it's taken him this long to rebuild it, but he's getting back there. Yes. I would love to see him being a driving force in that game and really helping them stave off a sweep, just as he did against, the Lightning in the Stanley Cup final, right? He was that driving force that kept them from being swept in that one. He scored the only 2 goals in that game. So
wildly different opponents. But
different situations. There was nobody in the building for that one. A world I think we'd rather forget.
I would like a game without shenanigans. These two teams don't usually have that. But what does tend to happen between these two teams is one of them really embarrasses the other one out of the building. We've seen it a lot, Pittsburgh doing it to Montreal. So I would like to see a little bit different this time around. I also really quickly want to shout out the Pittsburgh Tigers hockey team, who I believe are having a watch party for this game.
Nice.
Yeah.
I will take issue with the no shenanigans thing. Last game they played, someone took a run at Slav and hit him in the head, and they didn't end up calling it. I can't remember the name of the player.
We were really mad about it.
Yeah, we were really, and then the game is over. Pittsburgh scored an empty net. The game's over, and Mike Sullivan puts that player back out on the ice, and Xhekaj tries to kill him. And it's like, well, what did you expect? It was very bush league hockey from the Pittsburgh Penguins, to be honest, because they know he beamed Slav in the head. We saw it on the video immediately, and that took Slav out of the game because he had to go to the concussion spotter. So there was no penalty on the play, even though he very clearly picked the head, and the game kind of devolved from there. So I wonder if the Canadiens have a memory for that, and we'll see how that goes on Thursday. But that's what's been left in my mind since we last saw them. Any bold predictions for this game?
I'm going to say they're going to barely eke out a win.
Yeah. I'll have a fun one. He scored in the last time they played. Christian Dvorak will score a goal in this game.
That'd be really fun.
That's my guarantee. A very remember some guys sort of goal here, because he will be the guy. He will be a guy we try to remember years from now, which is very funny.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna head into our trivia here, and then we'll wrap things up. Yesterday's question was about one of my hockey special interests, which we are going to dive into next week, because if the question was surrounding Taro Sugimoto, the fake player the Buffalo Sabres drafted, and Montreal's playing Buffalo next Tuesday. So we'll use that as an opportunity to sort of talk about the Taro Sugimoto pick and the environment that surrounded it, and why I find it so interesting, and the legacy of that sort of pick. But for now, the question was, after Taro Sugimoto was picked at 183rd in the draft, there were some players picked that had legitimate NHL careers. One of them was picked by the Montreal Canadiens at 199th overall, who went on to win 2 cups with the Edmonton Oilers. And that player is Dave Lumley. I will give a shout out to Off Grid Gaming. They were first, but a second shout out to Joe Sagredo, who was correct almost simultaneously. They were very fast. So great job on that one. I love the Taro Sugimoto stuff. I'm so glad people recognize that pick existed, like the Dave Lumley pick. It's very funny to think about that sort of thing. So thanks for playing along. And here's your question for today. The Pittsburgh Penguins can sweep the Montreal Canadiens with a win on Thursday. It would be the second straight sweep for the Pittsburgh Penguins over the Montreal Canadiens. When was the last time the Canadiens swept the Penguins in a season series? So when was the last time Montreal ended the season against Pittsburgh with no losses to the Penguins?
This is not a trick question, right? It has happened.
It is not a trick question. This has happened.
Okay. I just don't remember it.
Yeah. Trust me. if it was, before my time, if it wasn't, it wouldn't be something that stood out to me. Yes, that season we finally beat Pittsburgh, all those games. So good luck. If you have the answer, put it in the comments, especially on YouTube. We will pin whoever gets it right there first. And we'll shout you out on the show. And you will have bragging rights over everybody else in the comments section. That's going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thanks so much for tuning in and for making us your first listen of today and every day. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey, become a fantasy hockey expert, and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, the socials, at Locked On Canadiens everywhere. Just go find us. You can find us. I believe in you. I'm at Maybe It's Ian. Laura's at The Active Stick. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you guys tomorrow.